Hi YouTubers, before we begin this video, I want to let you know what's going on. YouTube claims that the video you're about to see contains, and I quote, non-educational and non-informational content focusing on illegal drug consumption. This is a lie, and they know it. There is nothing of the kind in this video. It's completely family friendly. It is educational, it is informational, and there's no drug consumption at all in it. And yet, YouTube demonetized it. Not only was there supposedly a manual review, but Team YouTube on Twitter X claimed that they reviewed it too, and the decision stands. There may be limited ads, but I won't ever get the monetization from this video that it deserves because of their lies. Someone needs to do something about this. There needs to be an expose along the lines of the Twitter files to see why they're treating independent and anti-authoritarian creators this way. They are violating their own terms of service and they're just getting away with it. Anyway, here's the video, and if you didn't get an ad when watching this, please go to donate.bogosity.tv and make it right. Thank you. Good news, everyone! That whole I smell marijuana thing may be going the way of bad history where it should have the whole time. Yeah, sorry for the quality of my voice. I still got this crap. We'll see if I can make it through this in one sitting. There might have to be edits while I stop to save my voice. But yeah, I really wanted to cover this. And this is Montana's Supreme Court rebuking cops who searched a car after saying, I smell marijuana. And of course, we've covered that quite a bit. So the good news is at least one Supreme Court has considered that to be bogus. So a police officer pulled over Adam Torgerson for violating a state law that limits the number of auxiliary driving lamps, lights on the front of your car. The officer and a colleague who arrived later both said, I smell marijuana. They searched the vehicle, of course, and they didn't find any marijuana. How many times have we seen that, people? They say, I smell marijuana, and there's no marijuana. Well, maybe there's something wrong with your smeller then. Maybe your smeller is not probable cause to say there's marijuana in the car, because you keep smelling it when it ain't there. Or maybe you're the one slipping off to the marijuana and the smell's on you if you keep smelling it everywhere. What's that say? If everywhere you go, everything smells like crap, check your shoe. Yeah. But no, we've seen cases where, an officer over and over and over has done the I smell marijuana thing, searched the car and there's no marijuana. But the judge says, if he smelled marijuana, well, then I guess that's probable cause. He could have, failed, hundreds of times sometimes, they say. And the judge just kind of goes, well, not in this case. They didn't find marijuana, but they did find 3 pipes and a film canister that contained meth, which resulted in 2 criminal charges, 5th-degree possession of a controlled substance, and possession of methamphetamine paraphernalia in the presence of a minor. Yeah, that's one of those things they always like to stick on the end there. Doesn't really mean anything, but... Okay, that car search, the Minnesota Supreme Court recently ruled, was unconstitutional because it was based on nothing but the purported smell of marijuana, which was not enough to establish probable cause. The unanimous decision is a welcome limit on the alarmingly broad authority to search cars during routine traffic stops. And this is something else we've seen. They stop a car, but they use any little excuse to elevate it to a search. In fact, a lot of times the traffic stops are completely pretextual. Had the court ruled otherwise, Minnesota cops would have been free to search any car on the road by claiming to smell marijuana after stopping the driver for breaking any of the myriad rules governing the maintenance and operation of motor vehicles, rules so numerous, arcane, vague, subjective, and picayune that it is nearly impossible to drive without violating one or more of them. And if you don't think that's by design, you haven't been paying attention. The sole basis for stopping Torgerson was the light bar attached to the grill of his car. But the officer who pulled Torgerson over thought his light bar had more than 2 lamps, but although the officer and Torgerson spoke briefly about the vehicle's light bar, the record does not mention any citation. Instead of writing a ticket, the officer used the stop as an excuse for an unrelated criminal investigation, as cops routinely do, with the Supreme Court's blessing. And the one they're linking to is Wren versus United States. 96, I believe. Yeah, that was unanimous. Oh my God. Talk about your bad Supreme Court cases. While the officer verified Torgerson's license and registration, a second officer arrived on the scene. The first officer explained to the second officer that he thought he smelled marijuana coming from the vehicle and that Torgerson denied possessing marijuana. I swear, do not talk to these people. Do not answer their questions. The second officer approached the vehicle and spoke briefly with Torgerson and his wife before asking if there was marijuana in the vehicle, noting that he and his partner could both smell marijuana coming from inside the vehicle. The couple, again, denied possessing marijuana. Torgerson admitted to smoking marijuana in the distant past. Oh my God, just do not talk to them. Do not open your mouth. You do not have to answer these questions. You gotta do the basic stuff. It's a traffic stop. You gotta give them license and registration, and you just tell them I'm not answering questions because of the Fifth Amendment. I'm not answering any questions without a lawyer, and the whole am I being detained thing. The second officer stated that the marijuana odor gave them probable cause to search the vehicle and directed everyone to exit the vehicle. The officer was wrong about that. And that's the state Supreme Court upholding the judgments of the trial court, which excluded the evidence against Torgerson, and the Minnesota Court of Appeals, which last year agreed that the search was inconsistent with the Fourth Amendment's prohibition of unreasonable searches and seizures and a similar provision of Minnesota's Constitution. Although the long-standing vehicle exception allows police to search cars without a warrant, they still need enough evidence to establish a fair probability that a search will discover contraband or other evidence of a crime. By itself, all 3 courts agreed the alleged pot smell in this case did not meet that test. The cops said they suspected Torgerson was driving under the influence of marijuana, but Torgerson was not stopped because of erratic or unsafe driving. He was stopped because of a trivial equipment violation. Neither officer could recall seeing any indicia that Torgerson was impaired, nor did they see any contraband or substances in plain view. Yeah, it was just the smeller. It was the olfactory. The state cited several Minnesota Supreme Court cases that it claimed support a finding of probable cause based on nothing more than the odor of marijuana. The court saw those precedents as inapposite because they did not squarely address the issue. 2005 case State v. Burbach is more instructive than the cases relied on by the state. In Burbach, the court held that the odor of alcohol emanating from an adult passenger at a traffic stop did not provide reasonable suspicion of an open container violation that would allow expansion of a traffic stop. The state essentially asks us to create a bright line ruling by holding that the odor of marijuana emanating from a vehicle on its own will always create the requisite probable cause to search a vehicle. Our precedent, however, shows that we have shied away from bright line rules regarding probable cause, and we have never held that the odor of marijuana or any other substance alone is sufficient to create the requisite probable cause to search a vehicle. Instead, the probable cause analysis calls for the odor of marijuana to be one of the circumstances considered as part of the totality of the circumstances in assessing whether there is a fair probability that contraband or evidence of a crime will be found in a particular place. And yeah, that's a very different thing. It is undisputed that the only indication that evidence of a crime or contraband might be found in Torgerson's vehicle was the odor of marijuana emanating from the vehicle. There was nothing in Torgerson's actions to give suspicion that he was under the influence while driving. No drug paraphernalia or other evidence to indicate that the marijuana was being used in a manner or was of such a quantity so as to be criminally illegal, and no evidence showing that any use was not for legal medicinal purposes. In the absence of any other evidence as part of the totality of the circumstances analysis, the evidence of the medium-strength odor of marijuana on its own is insufficient to establish a fair probability that the search would yield evidence of criminally illegal drug-related contraband or conduct. And despite what the officers claim about what their noses detected, there was no marijuana in the car. And again, we've seen that over and over and over again. I smell marijuana. No marijuana. That should be part of the cop's history. It's like, how many times, you ask him under cross-examination, how many times have you smelled marijuana, searched the car, and there was no marijuana? 200 times? Oh, wow. Well, your smeller's not very good, isn't it? That must not be probable cause of it. If it keeps failing, then it doesn't work. Notably, the second officer did not claim to smell pot until after the first officer said he thought he smelled marijuana. I smell marijuana. Hey, yeah, I do too. That's funny, ain't it? The history of wildly implausible claims about police officers' olfactory abilities is just, that's just, it's imagination. Yeah. The cops invented or imagined the odor. Smelling alcohol is a big one. You have a lot of this, I smell alcohol, so I'm going to, make you do the gymnastics and calisthenics and everything. That's a bunch of pseudoscience anyway. And no matter how it turns out, no matter how well you do, I'm just going to say you failed because I can always come up with a way, that you failed. But, the whole I smell alcohol thing is interesting because ethanol doesn't have a smell. Ethanol is completely odorless. Different types of alcohol have their own smells. Beer has a smell. Wine has a smell. Whiskey has a smell. These different types of alcohol have a smell because of other ingredients that's in them. But so if the officer says, well, I smell beer, okay, you smell beer. But if they just say, I smell alcohol, well, what alcohol did you smell? Did you smell beer? Did you smell wine? Did you smell brandy? Well, I just smelled alcohol. See, it's stuff like that that's why you need a good defense attorney. Because they know all the stuff like that. They know all the ways. It's like, look, alcohol doesn't have a smell. You can't just have smelled alcohol. So if you can't say that you smelled beer or whatever, then you must not have been able to smell anything, and it's just your imagination and there was no probable cause. In recent years, the issue of how cannabis reforms affects the role of marijuana odors in justifying searches has come up repeatedly in states where it's been legalized. Cops may resent judicial or legislative limits on their authority to conduct searches, but it would be illogical to pretend that decriminalization and legalization have no impact on the factors that can be used to establish probable cause. This reevaluation provides some much-needed privacy protection and gives motorists a little more freedom to go about their business without police harassment. And imagine how much better it would be if we simply ended the war on drugs. And you couldn't say, I smell marijuana. And you couldn't really, you've got half a gram of meth and we're taking you in and all that. Imagine how many problems that would solve. With innocent civilians, innocent citizens just being harassed like this. There was no evidence that these people were a danger to the road. Remember, the reason why they were pulled over is the officer didn't like the number of lights they had on the front. Oh man, they'd hate it around here, the people who have like those whole row of like 6 or 8 lights on the front of their grill. Yeah. But yeah, that's not that big a deal. But they pull you over for that and they make it a big deal. And that's why you have all of these crazy little, like we've been saying recently about the stop signs, and how about the data from Tesla show that safe drivers don't actually do the full NHTSA approved stop when there's a stop sign but there's no one there and you got good visibility and you just go. But that's a great way for cops to do a pretextual stop, pulling you over. You didn't come to the full stop at that stop sign. Because no one ever does. The only ones they found were the unsafe drivers who were stopping for an opportunity to finish sending that text. Yeah. Yep. Actually pulling over the actual dangerous drivers, can't be bothered with that. Not when we've got pretextual stops we can do. Yeah, hopefully this is the start of a trend. And the whole I smell marijuana, I smell alcohol thing just goes the way of the dodo. It should just die the death. War on drugs notwithstanding. I mean, it would be great if we ended the war on drugs and ended all of these stupid little traffic laws that don't make us safer. That's just a way for them to write tickets to get money for the state and to use as a pretext for additional charges. You know, spending all of this time and resources paying these cops to harass and arrest people who are no threat to anyone else. Yeah, this would be so much of a better society if we just ended all that. And this is just another example. So, thank you so very much for watching. Comments for the comment god, shares for the share throne. Please hit like, subscribe, and the bell. And hey, I got through this in one sitting. Can you imagine that? So please show your appreciation by going to donate.bogosity.tv if you love the fact that I try to do these even when I'm sick and get you all this information and keep track of these things that hopefully are going to be good news. And maybe, you know, if you get the right lawyer or something, you'll be able to push it forward in your state and get this, you know, I smell marijuana and stuff like that kicked out like it should be. So donate.bogosity.tv. You can use PayPal, Venmo, cryptocurrencies. Thank you so very much for watching and sharing. As always, stay strong and be free.